The rain had not touched Velthra's ground in over a century, yet the ash sky wept with static as something foreign breached the atmosphere. A burning trail lit up the clouds, a human pod, falling, dying. The elders' censors screamed, but the watchers above were slow, methodical, obedient to protocol. Zirai was not. She crouched in the dune shadow, watching the fireball descend. Against everything she had been taught, every oath, every creed, her heart pulled toward it. The laws were clear: no human contact, no interference. But this wasn't theory. This was a real body crashing from the sky. And it wasn't an invasion, it was a cry for help. Zirai reached the crash site first. The pod hissed, steaming with ruptured coolant. Inside, she found a human barely clinging to life. His body was broken, blood crusted at his temple, but his fingers twitched, reaching toward her. He didn't raise a weapon. He mouthed something she didn't understand at first, then translated through his tech. "Please help." He should have been terrifying. The stories said humans were chaos-given flesh. Unstable. Violent. But he didn't look like a monster. He looked like someone who had lost everything and still didn't want to die. She felt it, raw, unfiltered will. Not survival instinct. Not fear. Something else. She hesitated only for a second. Her hoverbike barely handled the added weight, but she dragged him across the wasteland toward her patrol outpost, bypassing all comms, jamming trackers. Every step she took wasn't just treason, it was suicide. The human burned with fever. She wrapped his chest in synth bandages, used every stolen stim she had. He breathed, shallow, fragile, but alive. And in that breath, something awakened in her. Something the elders had tried to kill long ago: empathy. When the stars fell silent again, she sealed the doors. No reports, no pings. Dead signal. Later that night, she sat across from him, his unconscious frame barely twitching. She stared at the weapon she'd kept nearby, not for him, but for herself. If the elders found out, they wouldn't exile her. They would erase her. She whispered a question into the dark. "Why you?" He answered hours later, eyes fluttering open with a groan. "Didn't mean to land here. Woke up too late. Engines were fried." His voice was like gravel, scraped dry. She gave him water. He drank slowly, like every drop mattered. "You're a scout?" she asked. "Commander Ryan Vell," he said, coughing. "I was trying to get out of contested space. This was not part of the plan." She nodded slowly, her pulse drumming. "You know you're not welcome here." "I figured," he rasped. "You gonna turn me in?" She didn't answer. Instead, she offered him another sip and walked to the window slit. In the distance, the city towers glowed like teeth, sharp and ancient. Her ancestors had once reached for the stars, but the elders pulled them back. "They say humans can't be trusted," she said finally. "That you corrupt everything you touch. And what do you believe?" Zirai turned, her jaw clenched. "I don't know. I was taught to fear you. But you're dying in my hands. That doesn't look like a god of war." He smiled faintly. "Not a god. Just someone who refused to quit." She didn't return the smile. "I'm not going to kill you," she said. "But I don't know what comes next." "Sometimes," he said, "that's the only path worth walking." She stared at him, heart thudding harder than it had in years. Not from fear. From something harder to control. Outside, high in orbit, a silent alarm pulsed through elder surveillance. An unregistered burst of energy had been detected in the southern sector. Back inside, Ryan drifted into sleep, whispering names she didn't recognize. Names of comrades, maybe? Or memories he couldn't bury. Zirai stood watch all night. She had broken every law by saving him. But for the first time, she didn't feel weak for it. She felt free. Ryan's condition stabilized slowly, but the silence between them grew thinner by the hour. His body healed faster than expected, thanks to a cocktail of Earth biotech and Zirai's stolen supplies. Still, the bruises remained, a quiet map of pain that told her more than his words did. He never complained, never asked for updates. He just watched her with quiet intensity, studying her like she was a puzzle he didn't want to break. Zirai moved with caution, but not fear. The more time she spent with him, the more the legends unraveled. He didn't radiate danger, he radiated control. Not the kind born from dominance, but from surviving everything meant to end him. She'd seen hardened warriors in her ranks fall apart under pressure. Ryan didn't flinch, even when the cave trembled during minor quakes. He simply adjusted, enduring, never pushing, always present. One day, when the winds died, she asked him why he didn't use the emergency beacon inside the pod. He shrugged. Knew it would alert your people. I figured if anyone was going to kill me, I'd rather it not be automated. You trusted a stranger, she said, skeptical. No, he said calmly. I trusted a feeling. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. Trust was a dangerous word where she came from. The more he spoke, the more he exposed the heart of humanity, not as conquerors, but as survivors. Their greatest weapon wasn't firepower. It was endurance. Belief. A relentless refusal to surrender. He told her of planets they'd saved, not invaded. Of species they'd uplifted, not enslaved. Of comrades who'd died defending people they didn't even know. He didn't boast. He remembered. His words were lined with loss, but also with something Zirai had only seen buried deep in old, censored histories: hope. He laughed once, a short breathy thing, when she tried to describe her culture's view of humans. Sounds like a bad horror novel, he said. It's what we're taught, she replied. Then maybe it's time someone rewrites the story. That stayed with her. She began to look at her world differently. The massive statues of the elders didn't seem so wise anymore, just heavy. The creeds etched into every military outpost now felt less like truths and more like warnings meant to keep everyone afraid. She caught herself wondering what her people would be like if they'd been allowed to evolve without chains. If instead of fearing humanity, they'd chosen to learn from them. But the walls were closing in. Unusual movement in nearby sectors. Sentries hovering longer near old volcanic routes. Her encrypted scramblers had glitched twice in a row. Nothing conclusive, but to someone like Zirai, who'd grown up under constant surveillance, the pattern was clear. Time was running out. Why did you really come here? She asked him one night, low voice under dim lantern light. I didn't mean to crash. That's not what I asked? He hesitated, then answered. To get away. From war. From orders I couldn't follow anymore. You're a deserter? No. I'm a man who saw too many good people die for politicians who never bled. She didn't ask more. The truth had a way of echoing when left alone. He looked at her with something deeper than gratitude. You risked everything for me. Why? I don't know, she said honestly. Maybe because I was tired of obeying silence. That night, the tension changed. It wasn't attraction. It wasn't romance. It was recognition, of two warriors tired of the lies they'd been told. A tremor rattled the cave just before dawn, not natural. Zirai's instincts screamed. She scrambled to the entry corridor, scanned the ridgeline. A surveillance drone. One of theirs. It hadn't broadcast yet. She didn't hesitate. Bolted out, grabbed a magnetic javelin, and launched it in a perfect arc. The drone sputtered, sparked, crashed into the ash. She stared at the wreckage, panting. Inside, Ryan was already standing, weapon in hand. They're coming, aren't they? He asked. She nodded. I won't run, he said. You might have to, she replied. But in her gut she knew the truth. They wouldn't just come for him. They'd come for her. She had made a choice the moment she pulled him from the wreck. A choice that couldn't be undone. Somewhere in the distance, a silent signal was being transmitted. She'd bought them hours, maybe. No more. She looked at him. If they find you, they'll execute you. If they find me, they'll erase me. He didn't blink. Then let's make sure they remember us first. Whispers turned to chants. The elders' statues were no longer praised. They were painted over, defaced with symbols of resistance. Across the planet, exiles returned, not as beggars but as voices. The truth had spread faster than the Council expected, infecting even the most loyal sectors. Entire squadrons laid down their arms. Priests began to speak in riddles instead of edicts. No one knew who started the wave, but everyone felt its pull. Zirai and Ryan moved like ghosts, never staying in one place, never making the same mistake twice. They weren't interested in leading a war. They were living proof of what happened when obedience shattered. That alone made them dangerous. The elders doubled their bounty and deployed assassins from the inner ring. None succeeded. Not because Zirai and Ryan were stronger, but because others began protecting them. One night, a message came through a stolen comm. A summit was forming, scholars, warriors, even defectors, ready to challenge the elders openly. Zirai didn't trust it. Ryan didn't either. But they went. Not as icons, but as witnesses. In a dust-swept valley surrounded by stone, the summit began. No speeches. Just evidence. Shared pain. Open truth. They passed the original data cores to all who would listen. Each time someone took the core, they promised to show another. It became a chain, one no bullet could sever. The elders responded as expected, with force. Dropships darkened the skies, blaring commands of surrender. Tanks rolled in. But when they landed, they found no army. Just people. Thousands of them. Standing. Silent. Unarmed. The lead enforcer issued a final warning. Then he hesitated. Because standing at the front were two figures stripped of insignia and status. One was an exile. The other, a human. Zirai raised her hand and stepped forward. We are not your enemies. We are what comes after your fear ends. No one moved. No one fired. In that moment, history changed. It wasn't a gunshot. It wasn't a war cry. It was the absence of both. Within a week, the elders fractured. Half resigned. A quarter disappeared. The rest begged for negotiations. The people didn't celebrate. They remembered. They remembered the one who fell from the sky. They remembered the warrior who chose compassion over compliance. They remembered that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the act of facing it. Zirai never reclaimed her name. Ryan never sought a rank. They stayed together, moving far beyond Velthara, carrying this story to other worlds bound by the same lies. Legends would exaggerate their powers. Myths would paint them as immortals. But those who were there knew the truth. No bullet could stop him. Only his own courage ever could. The trial was held in silence. No audience. No defense. Zirai stood before the elders, spine straight, face defiant. The human had vanished. No one knew where he was, and she wasn't about to help them find him. They accused her of treason, of violating the elders' absolute decree. She didn't deny it. Her silence enraged them more than a confession ever could. They played the footage, grainy drone images of her entering the volcanic ravine, traces of foreign human tech, residual heat signatures. They laid out the charges. Harboring an enemy. Stealing medical supplies. Sabotaging surveillance. Spreading ideological corruption. Then they asked the question they thought would break her. Why? Zirai looked up at the ancient faces who had ruled for centuries and spoke only two words. Because I could. The chamber froze. They expected remorse. Fear. Submission. They got truth. The sentence was swift: exile to the wastelands beyond the city perimeter, stripped of name and clan. No contact. No return. No legacy. She was escorted out without ceremony. The guards didn't speak. They were trained not to. But one of them, a younger one, paused before activating the gates. His eyes met hers for half a second, and in that look she saw it, the question. The seed. The doubt. The gates closed behind her. The sand stretched for miles. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She walked. Hours passed. Maybe more. Time bled strangely in the wastes. She stopped only when she saw smoke on the horizon. It wasn't from a patrol. It was a signal, 3 bursts, 1 long. A code she hadn't seen since the old Resistance archives. She followed it. At the edge of the cliffs, she found him. Ryan, alive, battered but burning with a fire she'd only glimpsed before. He'd escaped the facility during the chaos after her sentencing. He had used stolen comms to hijack a mining beacon. The fact that he was still standing was proof enough. He wasn't done. "You came," he said. "You lit the sky," she replied. "We're not safe. We never were." He handed her a satchel. Inside were data cores, transcripts, secrets, unfiltered histories from elder archives. Truths buried long ago. The kind of truths that could fracture the system if broadcast. She didn't ask how he got them. "Your people deserve to know," he said. "They'll kill anyone who shares this. Only if they still can." She stared at the cores. Each one was a weapon stronger than any blade. Not because they harmed, but because they revealed. She looked up. "We'll need help." He nodded. "I know where to start. Outcasts. Exiles. They've been waiting for someone to light a match." "They'll follow you?" "No. They'll follow us." The plan was simple. Not a war. A message. Not through firepower, but exposure. They would hijack an orbital transmission satellite and broadcast the truth to every corner of Velthera. Not propaganda. Evidence. They moved under the ash moon, cloaked and silent. Ryan's body still bore the pain of the crash and the escape, but he never slowed. Zirai led them through forbidden paths only old warriors remembered. When they reached the relay tower, it was already guarded. 3 guards. Young. Nervous. Zirai stepped into view and raised her hands. "You don't want to die for silence." They hesitated. Then one of them dropped his weapon. That was all they needed. They breached the terminal, uploaded the cores, and forced a planetary override. Holograms lit up across cities. Archives played in open streets. Elder lies unraveled in real time. People watched. Then people questioned. Then people moved. Ryan and Zirai disappeared before the elders could respond. Their names were wiped from records, but the broadcasts had already burned into history. Some say they died in the wastelands. Others say they became shadows in the rebellion. But the spark they lit never dimmed. The elders could stop bullets. But they couldn't stop belief.